Yeah, let me see. Okay. I know I'm a little bit early, guys. I was getting this message. I don't know how many people understand these things, but the message says, where is it? It says, this endpoint is deprecated and will not be accessible once the next Graph API version is released. Like regular human beings are supposed to understand that, right? I don't know. Excuse me. But hopefully I'll figure it out before next week. All right. Am I working? I don't see me on Facebook. Darn it. Just it's always something. Okay, there we go. Okay, hi Cheryl and Shannon are here. Yay. Thank you guys. In a minute, I'm going to start. I'm waiting. I like to commit to the right time exactly. I'm waiting till exactly 11 and then we'll end at exactly 11:15. Thank you, Shannon. You always say I'm fine. But the thing is, you can't see that I'm not fine, you see. You don't know what's happening on my end, but all right, we'll do the best that we can. I'm going to be sharing my screen primarily, so I'm going to get that ready to go. Hold on here. And remember, on your end, you will need to click the screen to see the screen. And now that I've shared my screen, I can't see you. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. And just keep in mind that I won't be able to see your comments or questions until I get to the end. I will try to save time at the end to look at any questions you might have or comments. So welcome. Hello. I'm Nancy Manning, as you know. And this discussion is going to be this teensy tiny summary of a very, very giant issue. So let's take a look at what nonprofits we have as members of this Austin Nonprofit Meetup so we can see what types of relationships we have. Well, I'm sure hoping that, just a second. I'm sorry, guys. I'm not seeing, just a minute here. I'm not even seeing, just a minute, guys. I'm sorry. Shannon, you know how this is, right? Okay, share screen. Here we go. It's always something, I swear, every time. There. Okay. Oh my goodness. All right, here we go, folks. Now, let me, yes, I wanted to talk about the types of relationships we have based on the types of nonprofits we have in this group. So these are the kinds of nonprofits we have. We have those with several active board members and no staff. We have the ones with only those 3 original board members and the founder doing all the work. We have nonprofits with 7 to 9 board members and maybe 1 part-time staff. We have nonprofits with 7 to 9 board members and 5 to 8 paid staff. I have nonprofits here that are local chapters of a national organization with 12 to 20 board members and several local paid staff. We have those that are local to Austin, but whose board members are actually international with paid staff in more than 1 state, but who primarily work locally. And then we also have nonprofits that have a statewide scope in service. And so their board members live across the state and they have 1 to 2 paid staff. And of course we have things in between, but those are the ones I could remember. And by the way, if you do only have a few board members, please set up a strategy session with me so I can help you get not just new board members, but the right board members. This discussion is going to apply to all these types of nonprofits, but primarily where there is a board and at least 1 paid staff. And it's going to apply to all types though, because these 3 factors that I'm going to discuss, that impact how your team raises funds can relate to any type of relationship. And the three factors are communication, knowledge, and trust. And the ultimate goal of understanding the nature of these relationships in your nonprofit and what impacts those relationships will be to establish a strong, healthy team to raise funds. Details of how to build this team and raise funds are coming up in the meetup on Thursday, so make sure you come to that. This discussion will be about the relationships that impact the building a team in the first place. So let's start with communication. And the thing about communication is every relationship in your life involves some communication issues. None of us are perfect communicators. Years ago, I conducted a workshop on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation at a K-12 school. We did this activity where you take two people that are engaged in a dialogue about an important issue and you stand them up in front of the class. And then behind them, we start pulling people out of the audience to play silent people that stand behind them. So in other words, the silent people that stand behind each of these people in that dialogue are parents and grandparents. They represent those kinds of people, or children, or other people that impact the current relationship. And that activity was designed as a visual to demonstrate the baggage we often bring into any relationship as we attempt to navigate a current one. Another primary issue is the ability to listen deeply to a person who is speaking to you, and that ability is often impaired by how we might feel about the person, and it's definitely impacted by that thing we do in our heads where we're thinking about how we're going to respond to the person that's speaking, rather than giving them our full attention. Now, look, we could spend a full day on communication skills and the lack thereof, but clearly I had to pick two that I thought were the most impactful to nonprofits. So baggage and ability to listen. So let's step over to the next factor, which is knowledge. Now, in the nonprofit world, there's often a lack of understanding of the issues impacting governance by boards and management by paid staff. These issues aren't as simple as it might appear. On the board side of the equation, many, if not most, boards don't have a real solid grasp of their legal fiduciary duties. And this is something that the American Law Institute says. Volunteer nonprofit boards are often much less knowledgeable about their responsibilities than their paid for-profit counterparts. But you know what? You can't know what you don't know. And if a paid staff member is trying to explain to their, bosses what their job is, they're likely to be met with a defensive response at best, and certainly resistance to being told that they need to fundraise. The board side of this issue is very complex and actually happens to be one of my great passions. Fiduciary duties encompass about 600 years of legal case and statutory law. So hopefully you'll take one of my courses or engage in a virtual retreat with me to learn a lot more about that issue. But actually, the issues can run even deeper. It sounds simple to say that boards should govern and leave management to paid staff, but that ignores much of the reality. First, many nonprofits either lack paid staff or don't have enough paid staff and must be involved in some, if not all, of the operations, fundraising, marketing, that kind of thing involved in a nonprofit. As the nonprofit scales up, though, and begins to hire staff, it's often hard for the board to let go of management tasks and may feel insulted if it's suggested that they do that they let go. Most experts, such as board source, instruct boards that once there is paid staff, then it's best practice to let go, because otherwise conflict can occur. Too many cooks in the kitchen. Either you trust your paid manager or you don't, and that brings us to that third factor of trust. This is a big thing, I know, lots of screen there. So social capital theory generally means the factors that allow social groups, including those within organizations, to function effectively. Social capital theory explains how relationships can add value to your nonprofit. The relationship between nonprofit boards and leadership staff can either add value to your nonprofit or can weaken or even cause dysfunction within the organization. So this study, I love this study. It is published in the Journal for Nonprofit Management, and the title of it is down there. The study used social capital theory to explore whether and how the board chair executive director relationship added value to nonprofits. In this study, the board chair and executive director are referred to as pairs. The study found that there are 3 patterns of work that the board chair and executive director do together: managing, planning, and leading. There were some pairs that only managed together, such as on internal finances, personnel, facilities, developing board agendas, that kind of thing. And then there were pairs that planned together. So they were engaged in determining direction and strategy, building relationships, and working in committees. Pairs that were leading pairs worked with engaged boards on mission-related and strategic work and described a web of board staff and community relationships. They were able to create a level of engagement between the boards and the community not evident in the other pairs. And the key to this was the level of trust. In the leading pairs, the trust was 67% higher than in the planning pairs and 133% higher than in the management pairs. And only the leading pairs had achieved the highest level. Identification-based trust, which is you're identifying with the other person. The study found that the relationship between the board chair and executive director impacted the extent of effectiveness of the organization. So in other words, the higher the trust, the more effective was the organization. This means that it isn't always an issue of management versus governance. And in fact, there's nothing to hinder the board chair and executive director from working together on managing, planning, and leading the organization when there is a relationship characterized by a high degree of trust. So how do you become that leading pair? I have a set of communication guidelines, and I have some very clear communication strategies that will pave your path to build that trust. And I'll provide those to you if you email me. There's my email address, all right? But let's spend the remainder of our time discussing what you should do if your situation involves a relationship that has devolved into a dysfunctional one or one with a high level of conflict. When I owned Common Ground Mediation and Settlement, I ran a 40-hour program to train people to become mediators. A significant part of the training involved teaching about conflict and conflict resolution. So I went into my garage and I found my old manual that I used, and I found this one piece I'd been looking for called the conflict continuum. So in other words, down at this end, you have denial. This is sometimes a natural defensive posture that allows a person time to adjust to what's happening. Then you have this avoidance, because many of us have difficulty with confronting or dealing with conflict. There may be fear that the relationship will end. There's a desire to take an easy road by ignoring the problem and hoping it'll go away. Avoidance often results in a breakdown of communication or indirect or even dishonest communication. And then skip the problem solving and you go up to confrontation. Sometimes avoidance will de-escalate the conflict just long enough for the parties to use a prevention tool like mediation, and there's a lot of other prevention tools. But more often though, avoidance will not reduce the tension and the conflict will escalate into confrontation styles, confrontive styles. Parties may yell, call names, talk about each other behind their backs, push each other's buttons. And then you have aggression. In some relationships, there's a power disparity. Conflicts can occur because one party is usurping another party's power. Power can be exercised through money or emotions. Power is often used as a weapon, and it can be non-physical. Aggression does not have to be physical. In the middle is where you want to be. That's your problem solving. It's a collaborative style of conflict resolution. It involves talking, listening, working together, and cooperating. Now, really, unless you're in the problem-solving area of this continuum, you most likely have a dysfunctional relationship. So how do you get to the problem-solving part of this continuum when, for instance, your job may be at risk or at stake? Well, first, you must be honest with yourself about being outside that problem-solving part of the continuum, understanding the fault never lies with one party to a conflict. It is true that there are nonprofits that aren't learning profits. Everyone in the organization may feel that they know it all, both board member and staff alike, and that's damaging to a nonprofit. So, oops, sorry. If you need help with getting out of the dysfunction, set up a free strategy session with me. I can help you, really. This is one of my areas, one of my expertise. So now I'm going to stop my share and see if anything's happened. Now here's the tricky part for me. Once I stop my share, oh, just a second. See, this happens to me every time, you guys. I have to get back to where I was. All right, here we go. All right, thanks, Cheryl. Okay, guys. We're towards the end here. It is now 11:14. Yeah, the Zoom FBA lag is horrendous. That's a lot of it, but it's also the clicking back and forth between screen sharing, the Zoom screen, and the Facebook feed. So we made it. We made it through. Does anybody have any comments or questions? Are you still with me? Is anybody still here? All right. I see that 6 people have been viewing this. Shannon says, yikes. Did you guys hear the whole thing? Highly informative. Oh, thank God. Okay, thank you, Cheryl. And you know, that's just like I said, eensy part of the whole issue. Thank you, Shannon. And it is a big issue, and I love talking about it. So if anybody wants to give me a call and talk about it, I'm available. We have reached the end of our session, but let me just say one thing. I will be addressing how to build your teams, even when they're scattered, and even when there's this problem we've been talking about. So please join me on Thursday. Thanks, Kim. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Good to see all you guys. Yeah, Shannon, you're a lucky girl, but then you're just such a lovely lady. It's your good karma. Okay, guys, I'm gonna sign off as soon as I figure out how to get back to the Zoom session. Sure would be nice to just be able to click on the little Zoom thing and get there, but no. Okay, so I'll do this. All right, do this. All right, here we go. Bye-bye, guys. Thank you. Thanks for your patience once again.